to the Prophecy Club. Today I'm going to be answering a few questions. The first one is, what about the V? What about the anti-V? What about the mark? And then what do you think is coming? So first of all, before we get into that, I have to explain. So as you well know, I can't say the V word. Okay, the V is the thing that is making everybody sick right now. So I'm going to call that the V. And then there's a big push out there to get people to take the anti-V so that you won't get the V. So because of the platforms out there, that's the way I have to word it. I think you understand. So the first question is, should we take the V? Well, I don't think that I'm medically qualified to tell you not to take the V. So I'm going to tell you my opinion on it. And that is, if you were to ask me, have I taken the flu V? I would say no. Because I don't trust the pharmaceutical companies. And matter of fact, I'll tell you another little story. My younger brother had a young son that was just fine until he took him to the doctor's office and gave him a V. Now he's autistic. And you would not believe how many of those kind of stories I have heard, and I have also heard. And of course, you have to understand that we have Lynn Horowitz made a DVD on the V. And you can either order that at prophecyclub.com or you can go to watchprophecyclub.com and you can watch it instantly. Just type in Horowitz, Horowitz, I think, Horowitz, and it'll pull up the thing. Anyway, he's the expert on all of this V stuff. And he had the whole skinny on how this started with way back to AIDS and things like that. But I'm not getting into that today. So back to the first question. Should we take the V? Well, I'm going to tell you, I'm not going to take it. As a matter of fact, I'm going to donate my dose to Nancy Pelosi. She can have my. So all these people. Well, we need to get this vaccine off to the most important people. So I'm going to donate my version to her. She can have my V. So no, I don't want to take a V. And concerning the V, you may be saying, well, why haven't you talked about it? Well, I'm still on the platform because I haven't talked about it. But the reason I haven't is not that so much as kind of being a medical expert is sort of like not my thing. And I don't really want to make it my thing to spend hours and hours and hours to bone up on all this stuff. Essentially to say, since I've already had the V and I didn't even get a fever with it. Leslie had it. She got a fever for about 3 days. And it's not a big deal as far as I'm concerned. Now, yes, I know I've heard the stories like you have too about people that died from the V. So, yes, I understand there are people dying from it. Thou shalt not be afraid for the terror by night, nor for the pestilence that walketh in darkness. Okay, so when we're having a Sevenfold Miracle Crusade, and they're making us, I'm talking about the Hyatt, makes us wear masks at a Miracle Crusade, what's wrong with that picture? So, it's like, well, where is our faith? If we're supposed to be walking in faith, then why are we wearing these masks? Well, it's because if we want to go into the restaurant, if we want to go into the Best Buy, if we want to go into the places like that, they have rules. And if you want to buy there, you got to wear the mask. So, again, I don't like any of that stuff. And by the way, I think that the mask is to make us sick and tired of wearing the mask so that we will take the V. And then we can get everybody on the V, and then we can throw away the mask, and then we can go back to our normal lifestyle. Now, since I'm giving you my opinion, and that's exactly what these are, as a matter of fact, I need to give you a disclaimer. I cannot guarantee anything that I'm about to say on this broadcast is accurate. I'm just giving you my opinion. But my opinion comes upon lots of emails I've got, lots of different links that people have sent me to. Some of them I have watched, some of them I have not watched. But in my opinion, one of the reasons I would not take the V, and we haven't even got into the prophecy part of it yet, but I wouldn't take it is because I have some glue up behind me, and it is a 2-part glue. And you squeeze it out, and one comes out clear, the other side comes out a little kind of a light yellow. And you're supposed to mix those parts together, and then in 10 or 15 minutes, you've got hardened glue. In other words, it's a 2-part glue. So what's to say that this particular V is harmless, but what's to say it's not a first part? And then something else down the road could be something you eat, something you drink, something they put in the water, something they put in the food, something they spray in the air, who knows what. But it's the second part. And when the first part meets the second part, boom, you're dead. I mean, they have explosives like that where the first part and the second part, when they're mixed together, it goes boom. So who's to say that the first V is totally harmless and maybe ineffective too? And yes, I've also heard the videos and the experts talking about how the V has micro needles in it, and it is tied together with things that can alter your thoughts or your moods, and probably all of that is true. Since I'm not going to take the V, I'm not going to have to worry about what's in it. I'm simply not going to take it. And if they say, well, you got to take it, I'm going to tell them, look, you see this little paper? This little paper right here says that the hospital checked me and I already had the V. And I'm already over the V. So I don't need your anti-V. So I'm not taking the anti-V. I think I'm getting mixed up with the V and the anti-V. So anyway, so back to the question. Should we take the V? Well, I can't tell you not to. I think that would be legally perhaps in the wrong place. But I can tell you that I'm not going to. And if someone walks up and asks me, I'm going to tell them, no, I'm not going to take the V. I can't tell you not to take it or the anti-V, but no, I'm not going to take the anti-V. So the next question is the anti-V the mark? No, it's not the mark of the beast. And how do we know that? Well, because the mark of the beast can't show up until you have the beast. And you can't have the beast until you have the first seal opened. Revelation 6:1, I saw when the Lamb opened one of the seals, and I heard, as it were, the noise of thunder. And I want to say, and I want to believe, that we get to hear that noise of thunder. But nevertheless, whether we hear it or whether we don't, when the first seal is opened, I believe we'll know. I believe somehow we will know. Whether we hear this big, long, loud noise, like Ken Peters said he heard in his dream, it sounded like a 1970s car horn, and it was long, and it was loud, and a bunch of graves burst open, and people in white choir robe-looking things were walking around outside of the grave site for just a moment, and then they disappeared. He said he didn't see anybody go in the air, and he didn't see anybody alive go anyplace. But nevertheless, when that first seal is open, then the beast that is currently falling endlessly and helplessly in the bottomless pit is released. And if you get my book, The Secret Door to Understand Bible Prophecy, I give you 8 reasons why I believe that the beast will be a resurrected Nebuchadnezzar. I think I prove it pretty good with scriptures there. So it'll be a resurrected Nebuchadnezzar. And he is going to be the best looking, the best sounding, the most logical. He is going to be a man's man. He is going to be a woman's man. He is going to be the guy that all flesh loves. He's going to sound good, look good. Oh, man, he's going to have all of the answers. But he's actually Satan in the flesh. Or actually, that happens in the middle of the tribulation. When he dies, then his body is literally resurrected by Lucifer himself. That's the reason Lucifer wants to go in and sit on the Ark of the Covenant, proclaim himself God. So he sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. That is his ultimate goal in life. Second goal is to get all flesh to worship him, and all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him, whose names are not written in the Lamb's book of life, slain from the foundation of the world. So, it is not the mark of the beast. And I don't think that we are imminently about to go into the tribulation. I still think we've got a few years. I didn't say how many. I don't know how many. But I think we've got a few years before we hit the tribulation. I want to believe that somehow God is about to bring America into a time of good times. But what I suspect is about to happen, which kind of is the next thing I'm going to talk about, I'm afraid that what's about to happen, according to the prophecies, is we're about to see a shaking coming. First of all, according to Coverstone, which I do believe is hearing from God, I do believe that we prayed away some of the warnings. I do believe that some of the warnings we didn't pray away, and some of them are yet still to come. But I do believe he's hearing from God. Anyway, he says in one of his most recent dreams is that Wall Street is about to shake. Well, that's what we've been talking about. We have talked about how I don't know, I think it was, I looked it up, December 14th was when I felt like the Lord spoke to my heart and said that Wall Street is going to crash. Well, actually, what he said was the stock market is going to crash, which is kind of Wall Street too, which is kind of a financial crash. And again, he spoke to my heart the same way he does each day for the radio program. I recognize that. And so what he continued to lay on my heart was that if you want to keep it, then you need to get it in silver right away. And so that very next day, I called Terry Saka of CornerstoneAssetMetals.com. And of course, don't have much money, but what little money we had, I put it in silver. And I didn't know it at the time, but he could take a check on the phone, and he did. It cleared the next day. A few days later, I got the silver. And of course, by the way, if you do want to get some kind of precious metals, if you do get it from CornerstoneAssetMetals.com, if you mention Prophecy Club, it helps your Prophecy Club. But I want to make it clear, I'm not telling you to buy anything. I'm not giving you any advice in this program. This is not a financial program. This is a Bible prophecy program. So anyway, back to the question. I think that we are about to see a shaking of Wall Street, as was confirmed by the Coverstone Dream. We're about to see a great shaking in our finances. I don't know that that's weeks away or months away. I don't even know if it's even coming this year. But I think that if Biden truly is in control, and I want to believe he's not, but if he truly is, then we can expect to see all kinds of problems. We can expect to see Wall Street problems. And of course, the next part of the dream was he saw that the first was Wall Street was shaken. The next thing was the Capitol was shaken. In other words, government. Well, we've already seen a lot of shaking going on in the government right now, but I think it ain't nothing compared to what we're about to see. And then the third thing is he saw a shaking to the church. But the shaking to the church was much worse. Now, okay, what kind of shaking? Well, it could be the burning of churches, the beating of the pulpits. It could be the verbal attacks on Christians where they're saying that this is wrong and Jesus is nothing, that they're starting to make laws saying that you can't go to church. Maybe it has to do with COVID. They're starting to say laws like you can't say that homosexuality or abortion or some of the other things that they want to do, you can't say those things are wrong. And if you do, it's hate speech. Start coming out with the hate speech stuff. So the church is about to be shaken. And in that shaking, it's actually going to be a good thing. In other words, the shaking, because everything that God does, this is God doing this. Everything that God does is for our good. Because what's the saying? What's the scripture? It says, all things work together for good for those that are called according to his purpose. In other words, not all things work together for good, but all things work together for good for those that are called according to his purpose. Meaning, if you're called for him, then the things that are bad that happen to you are happening because he's trying to get us all into heaven. That's what he's trying to do. He doesn't just hit somebody to just hit them. He hits them because he's trying to get their attention, trying to get them to change their. That's the whole Coverstone. All of those were warnings. And if we hadn't prayed them away, we'd have seen them come to pass. But fortunately, matter of fact, that's what in the Wall Street Capitol Church dream that was given to Coverstone, he was told that he warned the church. The church has been warned. Now, you think about it. Okay, so Terry Bennett warned us, Shane Warren, Dimitri Duduman, Michael Boldea, Leslie Johnson. I mean, God's Warnings for America is a whole book, which you can get at prophecyclub.com. And it's filled with the warnings of the modern prophets that I believe are actually hearing from God. He has warned the church. But how about the church? Have we seen the churches start filling up? No. As a matter of fact, I just talked to a couple. Leslie had a birthday party over at our house, and we had a couple that's been coming to our church for a month, maybe 6 weeks there. We were talking, and his wife had grown up in a church, and she said, when we moved here, we started visiting around various churches. And she says, it's nothing but a bunch of old people. Yes, yes. It's the way it is typically in churches. Why? Because the churches are dying, because the young people aren't in churches. I also noticed that there was 3 teenagers at her party, and here we are at a party, and Leslie throws a good party, And these three teenagers are sitting there with their eyes on their cell phone. The whole time, eyes on the cell phone. So we've lost an entire generation. Some people say it's under 30, but for sure, under 20 years old, most of those people do not know the Bible, do not know Jesus, and don't think they need to. So consequently, yeah, there's a real shaking about to come to the church. And that must be why? Because Jesus loves us. Because if he didn't shake us and he returns, then many people would go off into eternity destroyed. Whereas if he shakes us, if he takes that nice, comfortable world away, then we start seeking him. And that's the whole point. And so, yeah, I think there's about to be a shaking Wall Street, of the capital, of government, and of the church. And according to what Tommy Arroyami, I don't know if I can say his name right. Anyway, he says it's coming in 2021. So there's a high probability. I mean, we are getting closer. And another prophecy of his said that we only have 9 years. Well, actually, that doesn't sound too far off. I'm not trying to set a date, but if we do have 9 years, tribulation 7 years, well, that would mean the tribulation start in a couple of years. Well, that's sort of in the ballpark of what Terry Bennett said too. And for lots of other reasons, I can go in and show you why for lots of reasons, they're not too far off. I'm not trying to set a date, but they're not too far off. Then, as a resulting of that Wall Street shaking, the capital or the government shaking, and especially the church, I think there's a real shaking coming to the church. As a result of that, there's about to be a great revival. Again, as the judgment hits, that's what the Lord told me, so will my miracles. Miracles like no one has seen, going all the way back to Adam and Eve. No one has seen the kind of miracles I'm about to do in the earth. So what is coming? My advice is I can't tell you not to take the anti-V. I can just tell you I'm not taking it. I can tell you that the anti-V is not the mark, but I do think it is heading in that direction. Like the mask is to get us to say, okay, I want to quit wearing this mask, so I'm willing to take the anti-V so I don't have to take the mask. Or I don't have to wear the mask. And I want to take the anti-V because I want to go to restaurants, I want to go to movies, I want to go to ball games, I want to be able to interact with the people, I want to get on airplanes. So what they're going to do is say, if you don't have the anti-V, you can't be a part of society. Well, that's kind of, when I told you this story, when I walked into, I think it was 2 weeks ago, into Best Buy, and I'd forgotten my mask. Well, maybe it's because I didn't want to wear it in the first place. So I found my 2 items quickly, and I'm standing. And matter of fact, the person is about to ring it up, and one of the bosses walks up and says, until he puts on a mask, do not ring him up. And I said, is that a Best Buy policy or is that your policy? He said, that's a Best Buy policy. So now here we are. You can't buy or sell unless you have a mask. And then before long, it's going to be you won't be able to buy or sell unless you have the anti-V. And then before long, you won't be able to buy or sell unless you have the mark. I've also already told you that your cell phone is not your friend. Not this version of the cell phone, but there will be a future version of the cell phone. And it probably is not going to be just any cell phone. It will be all of the cell phones will all be linked to a computer, a quantum computer linked through satellites. Your cell phone will be able to, not just Wi-Fi, but through satellite, so that everybody will be linked into a digital currency system. So says finalwakeupcall.info. You will not be able to touch your cell phone without leaving your fingerprint. It will always have the microphone on, always have the lens on, the camera on. So before you can even touch your cell phone, it has already identified that it is you with 100% accuracy. Far higher sensitivity with the microphone and the camera, greater resolution with the camera and the fingerprints than has ever been. Probably like in the ballpark of 1 million different data points for each one of the little fingerprints. You won't be able to access your account, access your money without a cell phone. Those days are coming, and they could start being introduced this year. So if, like Tommy Aromi is saying that we only have 9 years left, that would mean that we're about 2 years away from the tribulation. And then once in the tribulation, see, when the beast is released, he's not immediately even known as the beast. He's got to rise to power. At first, there is 10 global regional rulers. I talked about this in the Friday night Bible study 2 weeks ago. You should go listen to that if you want to know that. Anyway, there'll be 10 regional rulers, and then the beast will rise as the 11th one, and he will overcome 3 of the other beasts. That's how us prophecy students are going to be able to spot him early, by being able to spot him overcoming 3 of the other regional rulers. So he rises by conquest, by overcoming the other 3 rulers. And then when he takes that position, eventually in the middle of the tribulation, what gets him notoriety of the whole world is when he's wounded in the head to death, but he does not die. And I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed. And all the world wondered after the beast, and they worshipped the dragon, which had gave power to the beast, and they worshipped the beast, saying, Who is like unto the beast? Who is able to make war with him? And he opened his mouth in blasphemy against God, to blaspheme his name, his tabernacle, and them that dwell in heaven. And it was given him to make war with the saints, and to overcome them. And power is given him to continue 42 months. And all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him, whose names are not written in the Lamb's book of life from the foundation of the world, which is saying, as he comes to power, he has to become the world leader by conquest. In the middle of the 7-year tribulation is when he comes to power, but he gets that power primarily because he's wounded, not necessarily in the head. He is one of the heads, but he is wounded unto death. Now, some people say, well, does he really die? Other people say, well, maybe he doesn't really die. But since he is trying to appear like Messiah, my guess is he will actually really die for 3 days, and then Lucifer will come into his body and inhabit his body, and that's when he goes in, sits on the Ark of the Covenant, committing the abomination of desolation. And when he does that, that's fulfilling 2 Thessalonians 2:4. He sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. And then the false prophet is going to stand up and say, you see that guy right over there? That is the real man God. That's the real Christ. That's the real Messiah. Everybody got to worship him. And all that dwell upon the earth shall worship the beast, who's not written in the Lamb's book of life. And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark on their right hand or in their forehead. And that no man might buy or sell, save he had the mark and the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. Meaning, this guy is not on the earth right now, the beast. He is currently falling endlessly and helplessly in the bottomless pit. And if Tommy Aromi is correct, if we only have 9 years, if you take 7 from 9, that means in a couple of years the tribulation will start. We know the tribulation cannot start until all the names are in the book of life. And since there's probably a lot of those, because he's promised me thousands upon thousands of souls, and those people that are a part of our ministry, which is why you want to become a member. So it makes perfect good sense to me that on or about March 27th, which is Passover 2021, the greatest miracle revival in human history is about to start. And it'll probably go on for a couple of years. And then when the Lamb's Book of Life is full, then the beast will be released. And again, I'm not setting a date, but if Tommy Aromi is correct, 9 years, that means we've got about 2 years to get to the tribulation. Well, all of that sort of sounds like it fits. I'm not trying to set a date, but it sounds like it fits. Meaning that this massive revival is probably about to start, which is another reason why I would encourage you to come to the Sevenfold Miracle Crusades. Let me explain the difference between this crusade in case you went to the other ones. The other ones it was kind of a mixture between School of the Prophets and a little bit of prophecy. This one's not going to be School of the Prophets. This is not going to have me teaching Bible prophecy. I mean, if the Lord tells me, of course, I will, but at least we're not planning it. This one, I believe, at least our part, we have to set a plan, but I don't think we're going to do our plan. But our plan is to actually have examples where we're helping train you to lead someone to the Lord. Let's say we're at a sports stadium and we call people out of the stands and they come down to receive Jesus. We want you to be able to be trained to lead that person to the Lord. So that's one of the things we want to do. Train people to lay hands on people, you do the sevenfold miracles, to get them speaking in tongues and filled with the Holy Spirit. So it's going to be training for that. But if you ask me, I think we have a very, very strong possibility that we're going to see miracles. I'm talking about the sevenfold miracles. And yeah, I think it's going to be healings. And when we talk about miracles, we typically think of healings. But the big sevenfold miracles is when we have people driving into the parking lot saying, God told me to come here. I had a dream last night. So the Lord spoke to me. I heard an audible voice. And you just had people, all walks of life, speaking all languages, people that used to worship other gods. And they're walking into the parking lot saying, what must I do to be saved? In my opinion, that's the sevenfold miracles. So if you want to be a part of that, then you get yourself to the Sevenfold Miracle Crusades. I don't have the time. Okay, wait a minute. You don't have the time to win souls. Well, I don't have the money. Okay, wait a minute. Our God owns all the cattle on 1,000 hills. He owns all the gold and silver. So what you need to do is just pray. And I'm going to pray in just a second. Because if you're supposed to be there, and I believe you are, look, if you're listening right now, if you just listen to this, you're not listening by accident. You're not listening to get entertainment. You're listening because the Spirit of God has spoken to your heart to be a part of this ministry, to be a part of that Sevenfold Miracle Crusade, a part of bringing in those last remaining names into the book of life, the babes into the kingdom, people that they wouldn't even thought that they were even going to be a Christian. A lot of their parents were Christians, but they're not Christians. It's that sevenfold miracle. We're going to see people, a tsunami of souls pouring into the kingdom. And yes, part of it is that because the Wall Street is about to shake, because the Capitol is about to shake. There's about to be some of the people fighting against the government. Yes, the church is about to shake. There's about to be a great shaking in the church, and as a result, you shake the tree and the nuts fall out. Well, in this case, you're going to shake the tree of salvation, and a lot of souls are going to fall to the ground. A lot of souls are going to get saved. Lord, I ask you right now to speak to their heart if you want them to come, and I know you do. Speak to their heart. Make the ways and the means, the time off, the finances, all of the clearances they need to be there, because your way is in the sanctuary. Your way is winning souls. We want them to be there to win souls, to bring people into the kingdom. In Jesus' name, amen. Now, here's what you do. You go to sevenfoldmiraclecrusades.com, 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 and you get signed up. It's not for free, but we leave it on a donation basis, whatever you can give. And if you can give more, and I know a lot of you can, if God has blessed you and you can give more so that others that may not be as fortunate can still come, because this is not about money, this is about souls. If your heart is with us, I'm asking you to become a member. Actually state before God that you are with our vision to win thousands upon thousands of souls, to teach prophecy and walk in sevenfold miracles, to be a blessing and give answers in the time of trouble. If this is your heart, go to prophecyclub.com and click on membership. Only takes 90 seconds. This will help us to get a loan for an office and a church to do the work of the ministry. prophecyclub.com. CornerstoneAssetMetals.com is owned by a prophecy student who reads his King James Bible and supports Prophecy Club. Call CornerstoneAssetMetals.com for gold, silver, palladium, rhodium bars, or coins that can help you roll over your IRA, 401k. So tell CornerstoneAssetMetals.com Prophecy Club sent you. August the 8th of 2015, Saturday night. Lord, I don't have anything to say. What do you want to say for the sermon tomorrow morning? And for the first time in my life, when I was awake, I heard words which said, "This is the time of miracles." Then he downloaded to my heart that said, "As the judgment hits, so will my miracles." Miracles like no one has seen, going all the way back to Adam and Eve. You tell them, "I will never leave them nor forsake them." As the devil shows up, I'm going to meet him inch for inch, step for step, pound for pound. Everything he does, I'm going to meet him. If you believe that America is about to be in judgment, then I strongly recommend you go to sevenfoldmiraclecrusades.com, sign up, and be a part of the sevenfold miracles coming to the world to gather those last names into the book of life just before the tribulation starts. sevenfoldmiraclecrusades.com. sevenfoldmiraclecrusades.com. Click like, share, and subscribe. Click like, share, and subscribe.